Well, hello ladies and gentlemen. This explanation is going to be about coordinates. Because we're going to start with the chapter of climate, we really want to know which places we are on the world, because we're going to compare these climates. And it's very easy and handy if we have the different coordinates and places of the world, so we can compare them. So how do we do that? We're going to use the lines someone drew on the earth. They are not actual lines, they are imaginary lines, but in every map you're going to find those coordinate lines will be there, and once you know what you need to do, then you recognize those coordinate lines and you can do that yourselves. So look at the first lines we have. The first lines are the meridians. So they run from the North Pole to the South Pole. So they divide our Earth into East and West. The zero line is someone who invented those lines, and he probably lived near Greenwich in London, because that's the zero line. As you can see it over here, we call that zero line the prime meridian. Well, as I said, if you go west from that zero, you're going to be on the western part of the world, and going east of that zero, you're going to be on the eastern part of that world. We are obviously west of London, so we are on the eastern part of the world, according to the coordinates. But if we have only those lines, we could be on the zero line, but we could be as well in Greenwich as in Africa. So that's a bit of a difference. If you're going on a plane going to London or going to Africa, that's a bit of a difference in between there. So we need to have lines the other way around to intersect. So we have one point which is more clear on the world. So let's look at the other lines. The other lines we call latitude lines or parallels, and they go around the Earth in lateral ways, so they called latitude lines. The zero line is very important. That's over here. It's called the equator. The equator divides the world into equal parts. From the North Pole to the equator is as far as going from the South Pole to the equator. We are over here, so we are on the northern hemisphere, which is indicated with an N. If you have a place on the southern part of the hemisphere, you're going to name that with an S. Yeah, that's the southern hemisphere. So you know that the zero line is the equator. Going one line up over here is 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45, 60, 75, and from the North Pole it's 90. So you can know if you have a place over here, then you could be on 15 degrees northern hemisphere. And that's how we're going to work. Over here you see it compared, the northern and the southern hemisphere with the latitude lines, and over here are the longitude, so in length, the longitude lines. Well, if the other picture was not clear enough, I hope this one will. Well, how do we write those coordinates down then? Well, if you get an atlas, the atlas will be a map similar to this one. You see the equator, the prime meridian, and all the coordinate lines which we need to find that specific place which we want to know about. So, writing that down, we have different rules. I'm going to have 3 of the most important rules to you today. One of those coordinate rules is write always down latitude first, then the longitude. So the latitude lines look first north or south of the hemisphere, and those lines first, then come the longitude lines. Yeah, it would be a bit inconvenient if we switch them around and someone taught about this rule and you're going to be at a completely different place of the world. Yeah, we do not want that. So everywhere in the world we said we're going to put latitude before longitude. Then the second rule is always write down capital letters. Well, numbers are not in capital letters, but if you put N or S for Northern Hemisphere, or the S for Southern Hemisphere, or the E for Eastern, or the W for Western, make sure that those letters are in capital. Yeah, if you have such a bad handwriting that I cannot distinguish capital from a normal letter, then please underline it, so I know that you know that it should be in capital letters. And the third one is don't forget the degree sign. We are talking about degrees, not in degrees Celsius, that's for an oven. This is for your geotriangle, or what we use in mathematics. I don't like mathematics, but this is the only part of mathematics we're going to have this far. Yeah, so degrees, not degrees Celsius. Don't forget that sign. We know the rules. Then, how do we get to actually writing it down, finding it on a map? Well, over here there's an example of Washington, D.C. Well, we see the dot over here, and they looked at the latitude lines first, and they're going to find which number is compared with that. Well, we see that it's the 39 parallel, so you're going to write down 39 degrees north, and then going to look at the longitude lines. Well, it's going to be in between 90 and 60. They found it would be the 77 meridian, so it's going to be 77 west. Well, then you can also practice over here, this dot. What are you going to do? What are you going to do first? Well, we know it's north of the equator, so it's on the northern hemisphere, and it's east of the prime meridian, so it's north and east. Well, first we're going to look at the northern part, so over here, this line, and we see that's 15 degrees, so we write down 15 degrees north. Then we're going to look at the longitude lines. Over here, go all the way down, and we see that it's 30 degrees east, and that's how we're going to write it down. 15 degrees north, 30 degrees east. Well, let's try that again. Over here, what we see, southern part of the equator and western part of the prime meridian. Well, we already see a difficulty. It's in between 0 and 15, so we have to estimate. Well, I made an estimation of 8, I believe, so let's say it's 8 degrees south. Well, it's nice on a parallel, so that is 60 degrees west, so we're going to write it down as 8 degrees south and 60 degrees west. Yeah, just estimate. If you have 9 or you had 7, that's fine. I'm not going to be total witch about that. Well, over here we see one that's exactly on the equator, so it's neither north or south, so we don't write down north or south. It's just 0 degrees. Now, if we look at the meridian, we see that it catches to 90, so it's 90, and it's west of the prime meridian, so it's 90 west. So we say it's 0, and it's, oh, did I make a mistake then? No, if I go down over here, it's in between 60 and 90, so it's 75 west. So, make sure that you follow the lines well, because I already jumped from this line to that line, and then I have a completely different meridian. Well, that's not good, so make sure that you follow the lines well. Well, one last thing, if we're going further in this chapter, we're going to talk about different climates, and we're going to compare the latitude lines. Well, if we're going to look at the latitude lines over here, they laterally go around the Earth. We know that close to the equator, it's 0 degrees. Around that area, this orangey area, we call it low latitude, because 0 is a low number, so around that low number, that orange area, it's a low latitude. If you look at the blue lines over here, that's around 66 and 90, or 66 and 90 south. Those are high numbers, so those are high latitudes. So near the north and the south pole it's high latitude, near the equator it's low latitude, and in between that it's the middle. It's not low, it's not high, it's in the middle. Yeah, that's going to be important if we look further to the effects of temperature, which is important for climates. Okay, so I hope it's all clear now, and good luck with the exercises.